Shangilia Kenya, taifa letu tukufu, Kenya tunayoipenda, Kenya nchi tunayoipenda. Anayependa Kenya ni yule mwenye kutenda haki kwa watu wote, mtu mwenye kutenda haki.
Everyone has the right to live free, basically, free to be themselves, free to have a livelihood of their own and so on. And I think I also have a great rage and anger at injustice and inequality, and you know, so much of what you see is entirely avoidable.
We shall overcome. Yes! Yes!
Sit, babe, sit.
She is one of the sharpest political minds of her generation in Africa. A Kenyan political scientist, feminist, and human rights activist, whose work has moved from community radio stations to boardrooms of global organizations. Her name is Muthoni Wanyeki. Muthoni traces how growing up under fear, seeing deep inequality, and finding language for it through politics and feminism pulled her into a life of speaking up, here in Kenya, across Africa, and inside movements that have tried to change how power works on this continent.
So my name is Muthoni Wanyeki. I am a mixed race Kenyan, half Gikuyu, half Canadian. I grew up in Mombasa and here, went to Kenyan schools, Loreto, Mombasa, then Hospital Hill, then Loreto Valley Road, and then left after Form 4 to do my first degree. I did that in Canada, and it was a mixed degree of political science and French. Came back, wanted to get involved. I grew up, I should have said, under the Kenyatta 1 and Moi dictatorships. And when I came back, Moi was still in power. But I came back when, you know, at the height of the pro-democracy movement, the push for the return to multi-partyism, for a new constitution. And I wanted to be involved and got involved.
Those early years gave her two things that never left: an ear tuned to silence and fear, and an eye that could not unsee poverty and inequality around her. Studying political science abroad gave her names and tools for what she had already been feeling at home. Coming back dropped her straight into a country on the edge of change. People in churches, streets, and courtrooms pushing against dictatorship and trying to imagine a different future. And at the same time, another layer was forming in her story: feminism and women of color organizing, first in Canada and then back home. It helped her see that the limits placed on women's lives were not natural but built, and so they could be broken.
Well, I think growing up here and growing up under a dictatorship, of course, you become very aware of silences and people and fear and people being afraid to talk about politics and so on. That was one angle. I think the other angle is growing up in Kenya, like any African third world country, you're very aware of poverty and inequality. And I feel my first degree in political science really helped me understand why we were in the condition that we were in, and also really gave me in some ways tools or skills that I wanted to bring to bear in Kenya in the movement to rid ourselves of the dictatorship. I think while I was in Canada, I also became very involved in sort of people of color organizing, women of color organizing. I worked for a national feminist paper, wrote for them. I worked for community radio stations there and had a show for a while that was on by, for, about women of color. And yeah, really came to understand also that my life, the life of my mother, the life of, everyone around us was also circumscribed, I guess, by gender and roles ascribed to women, which I've always had difficulty fitting into. So it made sense when I came back to want to volunteer to bring the experience and knowledge that I felt I had gained around women, women's oppression, women's liberation to bear here. And of course, the issues are very, not different here, but very compounded. I mean, here, obviously, I'm in a position of privilege, right? I'm educated, I have another passport, I can travel. So even though my parents didn't have that much money, both of them were white-collar workers, I have a lot of privilege compared to the masses of people here. And I realized to be of service here, the majority of women, I had to understand everything, right? Class, how it works, race, how it works, as well as, of course, gender.
As the pro-democracy wave spread across Kenya and beyond, Muthoni's work moved through different spaces: research, writing, feminist organizing, human rights advocacy, regional and continental work. She spent years inside civil society and women's movements, helping to build institutions and coalitions that tried to push for fairer laws, fairer elections, and real protection for rights. At different points, she would carry leadership roles with the Kenya Human Rights Commission, the African Women's Development and Communication Network, and Amnesty International's Regional Office for Eastern Africa and the Great Lakes, before later heading the Open Society Foundation's Africa office. Through all these shifts, she stood firm in believing that political freedom, women's freedom, and economic justice belong in the same conversation and not in separate boxes.
I came back very young, right? So I was 23, running around in my jeans and my boots and my t-shirt, and sort of proud of myself for not being part of the brain drain. And people weren't interested. I mean, to get people to take me seriously as a young woman, like, yeah, very cute, very cute. But, so I think that was to push on and volunteer and make sure that people come to understand you have something to offer. That was a struggle. I think I've had a lot of struggles with internal politics within organizations. Within Femna, it was the older sort of crowd of, a friend calls them boo-boo wearing feminists, who in their own way were quite elite, and saw Femna as a platform from which to gain materially, but also to gain politically in terms of, as a springboard to something else. So I've had difficulty with internal politics, I would say. But I think what's always helped is I've always had amazing peers and colleagues within the women's movement in Kenya, across Africa, within the human rights community and the sort of progressive political community. I have a great circle of people around me I've never been alone in what I do. I've always been part of something bigger. So that helps. I think, that realization that you can't do anything on your own, and you need a core. You don't need many people, but you need a core group of people to think together, to do things together and go off. And then I think initially I was lucky because I had a lot of people who were older and more experienced than me from different parts of Africa, male, female, also take an interest in me. I mean, I was always very interested in them, like what was their struggle, what were they involved in, but I think they gave me a lot more than I gave them. So the idea of learning from people who've come before you has always been very real to me. So I've been lucky that way. I've had a peer group. I've also had a very diverse group of older people around me who were more experienced in the movements that I've been involved in a way looked out for me and took care of me and taught me a lot. I think it also, it goes without saying, it obviously helps that generally my family is on the same political path. They might not be overt around, but our general understanding of the world and how it works, they're supportive. I think it'd be a lot harder if I didn't feel I had a home base. So that's helped too. I've been lucky. I've been very lucky.
Muthoni's work has always been outward-facing, holding states to account, calling out abuse, defending people whose names most of us will never know. But somewhere along the way, she also became very clear that the hardest work is not only out there, it is also inside. Inside our own homes, our own organizations, our own movements. For her, it's not enough to demand justice in the streets if we reproduce the same violence and exploitation behind closed doors. This is where her idea of consistency comes in. That the future we say we want has to show up in how we treat the people closest to us too.
It's about living your principles, right? You cannot be out there on the street talking about an end to corruption when you yourself are corrupt, or an end to exploitation when you yourself treat your domestic workers like shit, or the way you run your institutions or operate within your organizations is, bullying or sexual harassment, or you can't do that. It's hypocritical and it's not the future we're working towards. So in a way, it's even more important to call it out internally in our own circles before we move out. The thing is not to get, there's a fine line between that and sort of insisting on ethics and, the right way of doing things among ourselves, to what I would call cancel culture, where you have no patience with anyone. Sort of everyone is wrong and you judge everyone on the basis of they're not good enough at A, B, C, D, whatever. That you don't want to go down that road either. It's counterproductive, and you don't want to destroy it. The fight is not with us. It shouldn't be with us. It should be for the world that we want. But basically it's about consistency and a lack of hypocrisy. You can't say you want one thing and behave differently.
Hakutatuzuia sisi wananchi kunyakua uhuru wetu, ili kupetu liangushe akina uhuru zichanue.
Over time, Muthoni has also watched some of the gains her generation fought for slip backwards. After the hope of ending one-party rule, seeing today's crackdowns, and the fear used again as a tool of rule, it has been hard. But she holds a long view of struggle, and her eyes are fixed on the young people who refuse to live with the fear their parents carry. The cost of this life has also shown up in her own body. A serious sickness forced her to spend weeks in hospital and step away from her job. That post pushed her to slow down, to think about how to keep contributing without losing herself. Resting more, watching more, writing and studying again, and trying to shape a role that still serves the work she cares about, while protecting her health and peace.
Daima mimi Mkenya, mwananchi mzalendo. Viva Gen Z, viva!
Everyone has that right. And then I think, is true, I never thought we would see the kind of regression that we're seeing now. It was sort of, yay, we got rid of the Kanu dictatorship, Kenyatta won, more, only good things can follow. And I mean, who knew would be in this state where police are covering their faces and killing people and abducting kids, and kids are being jailed for cartoons. Who knew we could be here again? But I think having a long view of history and sort of realizing change is not linear. We win some gains and we use those gains to keep working. That there will be setbacks and that there's no utopia. I don't know. This cannot be the condition that we're doomed to for the rest of our lives and for the rest of the lives of the generation behind us. It can't be. If you look at in Kenya, the Gen Z protesters, male and female, they're amazing. They themselves give you an idea of the future that's coming. I don't think our leaders have any understanding how far ahead the young people are, not just in Kenya, but in all of Africa. They're creative, they're innovative, they're fun. Everything that happens to them, they make a joke out of it. They're so outside of the frame that our leadership is. That gives me hope also, is realizing we have a whole generation nationwide, not just the elite, that know what freedom is and that want to live it, and want a better life. That's great, this recent experience of having cerebral malaria. I've lived here almost all my life. I swear I did not know a mosquito can do that to somebody. I was like, wow, it's forced me to slow down. I can't operate the way I used to. I'm still in recovery, I'd say. But it's been good because I needed it. I've left my job. I'm thinking about what to do. I'm watching all these amazing young people. It's their turn. And I think our job as people a bit older is to sort of think, how do we support and engage that? It's not that you walk off the scene, but you find a different role. You don't need to be forward, And I think because I've been in a funding institution for the last 7 years, I had already stepped back a bit.
We have occupied the deputy IG's office, okay? And we are powerful. We are occupying until tutaendelea na mapambano. Lazima Afrika ikuwe free. Hatuwezi endelea.
For people who are afraid to speak, Muthoni does not pretend the risks are small. She has lived through dictatorship, smear campaigns, threats, and the quiet punishments that come with refusing to keep quiet. She knows fear is real, but she also knows that silence has cost of its own, and that no change has ever come from people who gave up before they even began. What Muthoni offers is not a promise of safety, but a reminder that we are meant to do this together, to find our people, to stand in our values at home as well as in public, and to trust that each generation can push the work a little further. From the girl who watched adults lower their voices under Kenyatta and Moi, to the young woman knocking on doors in boots, to the leader sitting at continental tables, and now the elder figuring out a new role. Her life is a line of trying, learning, and refusing to give up on the idea that freedom can be real in this region.
Generally, life works out better if you do that than if you try and duck and dive and hide and, be yourself. But also, like I said, understand that these movements are long-term. They're not linear. They're certainly not individual. Get a good peer group. Get good advisors who are older than you. Pay attention to people who've come before you. Don't be kamikaze and sort of wild on your own, No change has ever come individually. It always is collective. So yeah, make sure you're around the kind of people who will help you move forward.